Miei cari amici, ho appena terminato una piccola lezione sul tema della sostenibilità e del futuro della nostra vita e dei nostri figli. Ho usato un video che adesso voglio condividere con voi. Il tema della sostenibilità qualche tempo fa forse non ci toccava neppure, non pensavamo di doverne parlare, mentre oggi è quello che ci consente di pensare a un futuro per tutti. Guardate questo video, è veramente interessante. Ciao!
When I'm starting talks like this, I usually do a whole spiel about sustainability because a lot of people out there don't know what that is. This is a crowd that does know what it is, so I'll just do the 60-second crib note version, right? So just bear with me, we'll go real fast, fill in the blanks. Every society has an ecological footprint. It has an amount of impact on the planet that's measurable. How much stuff goes through your life? How much waste is left behind you? And we, at the moment, in our society, have a really dramatically unsustainable level of this. We're using up about 5 planets. If everybody on the planet lived the way we did, we'd need between 5, 6, 7, some people even say 10 planets to make it. Clearly, we don't have 10 planets. Again, mental, visual, 10 planets, 1 planet, 10 planets, 1 planet, right? We don't have that. So that's one problem. The second problem is that the planet that we have is being used in wildly unfair ways. Right? North Americans, such as myself, we're basically sort of wallowing gluttonous hogs and we're eating all sorts of stuff. And, then you get all the way down to people who live in the Asia-Pacific region or even more Africa, and people simply do not have enough to survive. This is producing all sorts of tensions, all sorts of dynamics that are deeply disturbing, and there's more and more people on the way. Right? So this is what the planet's going to look like in 20 years. It's going to be a pretty crowded place, at least 8 billion people. So, first of all, what are we looking for? Bright green city. One of the biggest levers that we have in the developed world for changing the impact that we have on the planet is changing the way that we live in cities. We're already an urban planet. That's especially true in the developed world. And people who live in cities in the developed world tend to be very prosperous and thus use a lot of stuff. If we can change the dynamic by, first of all, creating cities that are denser and more livable. Here, for example, is Vancouver, which if you haven't been there, you ought to go for a visit. It's a fabulous city. And they are doing density, new density, better than probably anybody else on the planet right now. They're actually managing to talk North Americans out of driving cars, which is a pretty great thing. So you have density, you also have growth management. You leave aside what is natural to be natural. This is in Portland. That is an actual development. That land there will remain pasture in perpetuity. They've bounded the city with a line. Nature, city, nothing changes. Once you do those things, you can start making all sorts of investments. You can start doing things like transit systems that actually work to transport people in effective and reasonably comfortable manners, right? So we have a model in potential, an emerging model that we're looking for of how to take the cities most of us live in and turn them into bright green cities. But unfortunately, most of the people on the planet don't live in the cities we live in. They live in the emerging megacities of the developing world. And there's a statistic I often like to use, which is that we're adding a city of Seattle every 4 days, a city the size of Seattle, to the planet every 4 days. I was giving a talk about 2 months ago, and this guy who'd done some work with the UN came up to me and was really flustered, and he said, look, you've got that totally wrong. It's totally wrong. It's every 7 days. So we're adding a city the size of Seattle every 7 days, and most of those cities look more like this than the city that you or I live in. Most of those cities are growing incredibly quickly. They don't have existing infrastructure. They have enormous numbers of people who are struggling with poverty and enormous numbers of people who are trying to figure out how to do things in new ways, right? So what do we need in order to make a developing nation megacities into bright green megacities? Well, the first thing we need is we need leapfrogging. And this is one of the things that we are looking for everywhere. The idea behind leapfrogging is that if you are a person or a country who is stuck in a situation where you don't have the tools and technologies that you need, there's no reason for you to invest in last generation's technologies, right? That you're much better off, almost universally, looking for a low-cost or locally applicable version of the newest technology. One place we're all familiar with seeing this is with cell phones. right? All throughout the developing world, people are going directly to cell phones, skipping the whole landline stage. If there are landlines in many developing world cities, they're usually pretty crappy systems that break down a lot and cost enormous amounts of money. The second thing is tools for collaboration, be they systems of collaboration or intellectual property systems which encourage collaboration, right? When you have free ability for people to freely work together and innovate, you get different kinds of solutions, and those solutions are accessible in a different way to people who don't have capital, right? So, you know, we have open source software, we have Creative Commons and other kinds of copyleft solutions, right? And those things lead to things like this. This is a Telecentro in Sao Paulo. This is a pretty remarkable program using free and open source software, cheap sort of hacked together machines and basically sort of abandoned buildings, has put together a bunch of community centers where people can come in, get high-speed internet access, learn computer programming skills for free. And 250,000 people every year use these now in Sao Paulo. And those 250,000 people are some of the poorest people in Sao Paulo. We get so little news about the developing world that we often forget that there are literally millions of people out there struggling to change things to be fairer, freer, more democratic, less corrupt. And, you know, we don't hear those stories enough, but it's happening all over the place, and these tools are part of what's making it possible. Now, when you add all those things together, when you add together leapfrogging and new kinds of tools, you know, second superpower stuff, et cetera, what do you get? Well, very quickly, you get a bright green future for the developing world. You get, for example, green power spread throughout the world. You get, this is a building in Hyderabad, India. It's the greenest building in the world. You get grassroots solutions, things that work for people who have no capital or limited access. You get barefoot solar engineers carrying solar panels into the remote mountains. Water solutions. Water is one of the most pressing problems. Here's a design for harvesting rainwater that's super cheap and available to people in the developing world. Here's a design for distilling water using sunlight. Here's a fog catcher, which if you live in a moist jungle-like area will distill water from the air that's clean and drinkable. Here's a way of transporting water. I just love this, you know, I mean, carrying water is such a drag. And somebody just came up with the idea of, well, what if you rolled it, right? You know, I mean, that's a great design. This is a fabulous invention, LifeStraw. Basically, you can suck any water through this and it will become drinkable by the time it hits your lips. So, you know, people who are in desperate straits can get this. This is one of my favorite world-changing kinds of things ever. This is a merry-go-round invented by the company Roundabout, which pumps water as kids play. You know? And we have new tools. This is one of my absolute favorite things anywhere. Does anyone know what this is? Exactly. This is a landmine detecting flower. If you are living in one of the places where the roughly 500 million unaccounted for mines are scattered, you can fling these seeds out into the field, and as they grow up, they will grow up around the mines, their roots will detect the chemicals in them, and where the flowers turn red, you don't step. Yeah, so seeds that could save your life, you know? I also love it because it seems to me that the example, the tools we use to change the world ought to be beautiful in themselves. You know, that it's not just enough to survive. We've got to, like, make something better than what we've got. And I think that we will. Just to wrap up, in the immortal words of H.G. Wells, I think that better things are on the way. I think that, in fact, all of the past is but a beginning of a beginning. All that the human mind has accomplished is but the dream before the awakening. I hope that that turns out to be true. The people in this room have given me more confidence than ever that it will. Thank you very much.